Hi
Hi,
everyone,
everyone.
welcome.
Thank you for joining us. Um, as you join, if you want to put in the chat where you're joining us from, we would love to see. So go ahead and put in the chat where you're joining us from. We'd love to see where you're coming from. And we'll get started in just a minute. Ooh, Australia. That's great. South Africa. Whoa. If you're just joining us, we're going to get started in just a minute, but go ahead and put in the chat where you're joining us from. We'd love to see where everybody's coming from. France, fantastic. Hong Kong, Puerto Rico, what a mix. This is great. Virginia, Austria, Brazil, great. We'll get started in just one more minute, still a little bit early. We're excited to have you all join us for the presentation. Another person from Austria, great. Somebody from the US, fantastic. A good international crowd we have here today. California, I think we have people from almost every time zone right now. So thank you all for being here, whatever time it is for you. All right. Well, we can go ahead and get started. I'll turn it over to you, Jackie.
Hi everyone, good morning, good evening. We are so happy you're here. Um, so welcome to the ISEP Student Experience panel. We have three amazing panelists today, so we are so excited. But before we get to them, we just want to reiterate what ISEP is. So we are a nonprofit organization that helps make students studying abroad accessible and affordable for everyone. Our ISEP programs are immersive and authentic, and they focus on intercultural exchanges. So how to apply? If you haven't done so already, you can create an account at www.isepstudyabroad.org/apply. This is where you can get in touch with our expert student services team, such as myself, to talk about your goals for studying abroad and finding the perfect program for you. And your student services officer, such as myself, we walk you through the application process and answer any questions that you may have along the way. So how it works, we have semester-long, full year, and summer programs. We have over 300 universities and over 50 countries to choose from. We have two types of programs, ISEP Direct and ISEP Exchange. ISEP Direct is you pay a specific program fee and it has flexible housing and meal options. Your placement is guaranteed as long as you meet all the requirements. ISEP Exchange is a little bit different. You pay your home institution's tuition, housing, and meals. You can have up to 10 sites in your application, but placement depends on popularity of the program and space available. We encourage all students to at least list 3 to 5 programs in their application and 1 to 2 of those programs with a good or excellent chance of placement. And now I will turn it over to my colleague Jackie, who will introduce our panelists for today.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jackie Langdon, and I'm part of the marketing team here at ISEP Study Abroad. And I'm joined here today by three of our panelists, possibly a fourth. I believe they're having some technical issues with joining, but I'll go ahead and introduce the three who are able to join us here now. We have Sam, who is from Germany, who studied abroad in the United States. We have Summer, who's originally from the United States, Wyoming specifically, and went to the UK. And then we have Bridget, who is also from the United States and studied abroad in Barcelona. So welcome to each of our panelists today, and thank you for joining us. I'm really excited to get to hear a little bit each about your ISEP student experiences. So we can go ahead and start and have everybody answer this question, but how did each of you decide to study abroad? Maybe we'll go ahead and kick it off with Bridget.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be speaking with you all today. So for me, I kind of always wanted to study abroad, and I was lucky that my parents always talked to me about it and encouraged me to look into it very early on. And I had actually done a summer study abroad program the summer before I went in the spring semester following that. So I kind of got a little taste of what it was like to be away from home and travel and see new places. And it just really inspired me to get a full semester experience of that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bridget. How about Summer?
Hi, mine's actually kind of similar. I had always wanted to study abroad. Growing up, my family really didn't get to travel much, so I hadn't quite been out of the US all that much, except for the summer before I went on my study abroad as well. While I was applying to ISEP, I was actually working abroad in Panama. So I applied mostly to English speaking countries because I kind of wanted to get a taste of studying abroad in another country, but ease into it with, a similar language. And then I'm actually planning on going on another study abroad with ISEP this coming spring. So we'll see where I end up there.
Awesome. That sounds wonderful. I always say that students always tell me they wish they studied abroad for longer or that they could go abroad again. So that's very exciting to hear that you're getting to do that. Let's go ahead and pop over to Sam.
Yeah, for me, that was pretty much the case. I did my first exchange during my undergrad, and I went to Spain. So I stayed within Europe. And for the second time, I had a really great experience doing that in Europe, but I wanted to broaden my horizon a little bit and move outside of Europe. So I went ahead and applied for ISEP, and that was actually the first time I went and traveled outside of Europe. And going to Alaska, that's pretty much the furthest I could go at this point. So that was pretty exciting. And for me, I think what excites me most about an exchange program is that it's such a good way to have like structural support of studying, of taking classes, and it's relatively easy to meet people and to really dive into the local culture and the local lifestyle. Much different, I think, than traveling later on. So I think it's a great opportunity, and I definitely wanted to do it a second time. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks to each of our panelists for sharing. We know that every student who decides to study abroad kind of approaches that differently. So it's really great to hear sort of the different perspectives that each of you had in approaching that decision. Kind of on a similar note, I'd love to hear about how each of you selected your program or programs that you were interested in for your ISEP application. So we'll go ahead in our same order, and we'll kick off with Bridget.
For me, I kind of just always wanted to go to Barcelona, honestly. I had visited previously with my family one summer, and we were there for, I think, 4 days, and I just really loved the atmosphere. I liked that it was a busier city, near the beach, there's mountains around it. So I personally was always drawn toward Barcelona, and I did look into different programs, but once I figured out that this ISEP Direct program with Barcelona allowed me to take classes that were going to work for my major and for me to study Spanish, it made the most sense for me to do that one.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bridget. And Leo, I see that Leo was able to join our panel as well. Just to catch you up on the question we're answering, we're having everybody answer this, but we'll let you take a moment to think about it. We're asking everybody to speak to how you selected your program or programs. I may actually have you unmute yourself real quick just to introduce yourself and where you're from and where you studied abroad.
All right, hello, thank you. Sorry, I just joined because I had some internet problems and updates anyway. So I'm from France, actually from Nantes, the city in the northwest of France. And I chose the US to go abroad for a year, and I've been chosen in Baltimore, actually, for a year abroad in Goucher College. And yeah, that's about it. I was studying international business there.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Leo, and it's great to have you join us. So we'll jump back to Summer, if you wouldn't mind telling us how you chose the program or programs that you were interested in for your application.
Yeah, so like I said, when I was originally applying to study abroad for a semester, I was already working down in Panama, so navigating like a Spanish-speaking country while also working in like a zoology type field. So while I was applying, because I study biology, I wanted to at first stick with an English-speaking country because I knew later on I could also apply again to go study abroad and go somewhere else if I so chose. And actually, most of the places I applied to were in New Zealand or Australia, and University of Chester was like at the end. But it ended up being the best thing ever, and I love that city. So yeah, that's kind of how I chose it. It ended up being a great choice, and yeah, I was kind of okay with wherever I ended up. So
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, definitely incorporating if you want to have a language component or not to your program is a really important factor in deciding what programs may be a good option for you. And as Summer kind of said, no matter where you go on a study abroad experience, it certainly will be life-changing. So let's go ahead and see what Sam has to say.
Well, for me, the problem was I was doing a master's program at the time in outdoor education, and that field is not really like widely known, or there's not many programs in the world that you can do. So it kind of narrowed it down to North America and New Zealand, I believe, and Australia would have also been an option, but it didn't match up like semester-wise. And so for studying in the US or Canada, ISEP was the only option for me actually to go there because of the funding. I think was the easiest for me with ISEP Exchange actually. So that's why it was just the best option my university had for studying in the US, I think. And then my program in Alaska, that was actually my top choice, and I'm so happy I got it because I believe when I was searching for the right university, that actually offered outdoor education classes. I think they were only 4 or 5 maybe in the US. I don't know if I checked it well enough, but Alaska was the first one, I believe, because it starts with the letter A, and I knew right away that's where I need to go. And the universe aligned in such a way that I could make it, and I'm really grateful that it happened that way.
Yes, and Sam, you touch base on kind of the funding with study abroad, which is certainly also something that is important to take into consideration as well, taking into account what your budget may be associated with studying abroad. We have some great tools on our website for any students interested in learning more about those resources that are available. So Leo, why don't we hear if you want to expand a little bit more about how you selected your program in Maryland for study abroad?
So from the beginning of my studies, I was studying international business and languages, and I wanted to learn English. So I wanted to go to an English-speaking country, and my first choice was the US because I don't know, my childhood I've always wanted to go to the US. So when I knew about my program at my university, that I could go to the US through this program, I just applied to it. And I had so many choices actually. So I applied to 10 of them. And so I was accepted in Maryland. So I said, yes, of course, I want to go. And that was a pretty cheap program compared to the price in the US for university. So I had to take it and to go for it. and that was my best experience ever.
Wonderful. We're happy to hear that you enjoyed it so much and that you got to go for a full year too. That's really amazing. Thanks to each of our panelists for sharing. I would love to hear each of you share with us an anecdote or a story highlighting a pivotal moment during your study abroad experience. And we'll go ahead and start again with Bridget.
I think one of my favorite kind of memories of the whole semester was it was really stressful, honestly, when we first got there, trying to figure out travel plans. And I went into it not knowing anyone. So I was honestly very stressed. But then within 3 weeks, I had planned one trip with a few people that lived in the same residence hall as me. And then we kind of all brought together the other people that we had met and planned this big trip to go to Prague. So I think there were about 15 of us, and that whole trip was just so fun to me, even though it was kind of crazy because we thought that it was going to be warmer. We got there with none of the right clothing for it ended up snowing. And we kind of just were running around the city, exploring, didn't have any plans of what to do while we were there for the weekend. But it was just those kind of more spontaneous weekend trips that we did that were the most memorable thing for me.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, Summer, how about you?
Um, it's so hard to choose. There were so many. But actually, in the picture on the slide right here, I'm at the bottom, and that was a hike that a friend of mine took me on. And I had met them through the gym that I joined in Chester. And I guess it's not just one moment, but joining that gym really gave me all of my friends throughout my whole study abroad, and they really became a family to me, and provided me so many experiences. Like that same friend took me up to Edinburgh, and like I would go get breakfast with people from that gym, and it was just a really great community to have. So I would say like that hike in that picture, the weather was terrible. It was up Mount Snowdon over in Wales, but we made it all the way to the top despite all the wind and the hail and everything coming at us. And yeah, it really just set me up to have a great semester there.
That's wonderful. I'm going to have to start surveying people at my gym to see if anybody wants to take me to Scotland. Thank you for sharing that with us, Summer. Sam, how about you? What was a pivotal moment from your experience?
That's really hard to pick, actually, because there were so many, well, challenging moments because of the classes that I decided to take. I studied outdoor education, but like I went into a certificate program called Outdoor Skills and Leadership. And basically that all revolved around going outside every other weekend and basically being faced with the harsh Alaskan landscape. As you may imagine, it's like super brutal, nothing compared to what I was used to in Europe. So every other weekend was like pretty challenging and like definitely extended my personal boundaries more than I would ever think it would. But I think in general, for me, during both my study abroad experiences, actually, I think the pivotal moment was after 2 or 3 months, I think. And during both these times, I went for a full year. So during both these times, after 2 or 3 months, that was the moment when I actually felt like I'm home. I've pretty much like started having like a group, a social circle. I feel comfortable, I have a routine. And those moments were always really meaningful to me because it basically showed me that I can live anywhere, make a community everywhere, anywhere in the world, and have friends anywhere. And it was a really, I don't know how to describe it better, but it was just a very meaningful point in time always for me, knowing that I can basically go anywhere and just be fine and live life.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, Leo, how about you?
I agree with Sam. It's pretty easy to create a community wherever you go in the world. You can still make friends even if you're so far from home. And personally, I chose a moment that changed it didn't change my experience, but at the beginning when I arrived in the US, we had this whole international community because only international students were there and not Americans. And that was like in September, something like this. when I went back to my dorm, I saw this small poster in my building, and it was a call for a volleyball club. And so usually I don't even notice it, but this time I noticed it, and I went to this meeting, and that's where I met my new, which is going to be my new group of friends, and there was almost only Americans, no internationals. So there was another group of friends that I made, and just that was such a great idea to go there because I joined the club. I played volleyball for the whole year, and I met so many people there. That was really a great experience, and there was really, as Sam said, it's so meaningful to meet people and to make these people a new community, a new friend group for you. That was one of my greatest experience.
Thank you, Leo. And that actually transitions perfectly into our next question, which some of you already touched a little bit on this, but I'd love to hear more. How did you connect and make friends with local students while abroad? So Bridget, let's go ahead with you.
So I was in Barcelona, so it was Spanish speaking, and although I speak a little bit, I'm not fluent or anything, so I would kind of try to make friends and build little relationships with things as little as standing in the cafeteria line and asking students how to correctly say a certain sandwich or pastry or something. And from there, I would see the same students, and I sat with them a few times in the cafeteria between classes, and they would tell us about great places to visit, what to do in Barcelona, and they just kind of gave us a local look through the city, which was really cool. And I'm really glad that I was able to go to an actual university in the place that I studied abroad, because I know a lot of people have an experience where they're just with kids from their own college. And I think that it makes a huge difference to be surrounded by local students and the community in the country that you're in for the whole semester.
Thank you for sharing that. Summer, do you want to tell us about how you connected and made friends?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with Bridget. At first, I remember it was a little bit difficult because I was surrounded by other international students for the most part for the first week or so. And I found it kind of hard to branch out and meet more of the UK students. But something that really, I think, made a difference for me was joining some sort of structured activity. So on campus there, I joined the university's rugby team because I play rugby here in Wyoming, but always wanted to try it in the UK. And that was a really great foundation for building friends. I'm going to visit one of my friends from that club actually later on. And then, like I said, I talked about the gym. I'm a CrossFit trainer, so I joined the CrossFit gym over in Chester. So those people, there were almost no students at that gym, but they still, they became my family. They welcomed me in, and it was great because I'd have a set time every day where I'd get to go and just recognize people that I know and have something to look forward to. And just join a group, follow your passions, find a sport, find music, anything.
Awesome. Thank you. Sam, how about you?
I think I would agree, joining something is definitely a great way. For me, I think the start of the semester was also just a great opportunity because during Welcome Week activities, everybody wanted to meet new people and everybody was so eager and to just connect and meet people. And actually during the Welcome Week, I met a person that is still one of my best friends, and I'm still in very good contact with her, and she's Alaskan. So that was a great way for me, an entry point for me into the local community. And I'm really grateful that I met her. And other than that, I was pretty fortunate that the University of Alaska Southeast is incredibly small. There's about, I think, 500 resident students that live there and 2,000 online students. But so the campus community is super small. And because I was only one of 2 international students, I was pretty widely known on campus and recognized and approached and asked questions. And that was just a great way also to meet new people.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. And Leo, I know you talked a bit about making friends through the volleyball team, but I don't know if you had anything else that you wanted to add in terms of any advice you have with connecting with students at your host institution.
Yeah, so of course, joining a club or team or anything like this, like a small community, is really helpful to make friends. Also, as Sam said, yeah, the first week, the welcome week, is really great because everyone tries to make new friends, so it's easy. Also classes, we don't think about it, but classes in the US, it's not like in France. In the US, you choose your classes, so you can just meet new people every classes and every semester because you have to change. So classes is a good thing to meet new people, and also, of course, if you go out the night or if you do some parties, you get to know more people. And yeah, there are so many ways to meet new people and to make new friends. So that was my different ways to make friends: classes, a club, and going out.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's so great to hear what each of you has to say, because I think what we're also learning is that there's not really a right way or a correct time frame in which you should start feeling connected or making friends. It can really happen in a variety of different ways and different moments. And I think that's something that's important to keep in mind during this type of an experience.
I also loved how all of you made such great local connections. I feel like that's something that, is so unique to ISEP. Like you spoke about the ability to be in school with other local students, I think is great. And I love that Sam became famous in Alaska now. And that's just such a great ISEP story. I love that.
Yes, this is so great to hear. And hopefully it's getting our students who are listening in excited about opportunities with ISEP as well. So kind of going off of that, I'd love to hear any favorite experiences that each of you had interacting with your host community. Like Rachel said, ISEP is really passionate about fostering those authentic, immersive experiences. So we'd love to hear a little bit more about that. So I bet you can't guess that I'm going to pick Bridget to go first.
One of the activities that my ISEP coordinators organized was a hike. And so it was a bunch of ISEP students who chose to go, but the coordinator brought along two of her friends, and they were from different parts of Europe and had only been living in Barcelona for, I think, 6 months to a year. And although it was organized through ISEP, not just me going and finding these people, it was really cool to get to hear about them and what brought them to Barcelona. And I mean, they spoke 3 to 4 languages each, and they had lived in so many different countries and seen so much of the world. And I just thought it was so cool to get to hear from them. And this was all just during a hike. So we spent the day taking a train for an hour, hour and a half to this place called Montserrat outside of Barcelona. And we did a hike for a while. We had lunch at the top of this beautiful mountain and just got to hear about these people's lives. And it was just really cool to me.
When you said a hike a little bit outside of Barcelona, I was like, oh, I wonder if it's Montserrat. I lived there for a summer, and that's just such a gorgeous place and such a wonderful story. So thank you for sharing that. Summer, do you want to share a favorite experience interacting with your host community?
Yeah, so mine's actually kind of similar to Bridget's as well. I feel like I'm just gonna piggyback the whole time. I went hiking in Wales again with some of those friends from the gym, and one of them brought along their partner who I think was originally raised in Namibia and just had this crazy life story about how he'd like moved to Israel for a portion of his time and then got sent to the UK for like boarding school or whatever. Um, and so it was just really cool to talk to these people who had been all over the world. Another person on that hike was also originally from Brazil, going to Liverpool for, I think, law school, something like that. And it was just really cool to hear about their stories and learn that there really is no set path. And after that hike as well, we sat down and got kind of a brunch lunch type thing. And it was just really funny because we were comparing a lot of British slang terms and American slang and discussing how like I called the herb cilantro, they call it coriander, stuff like that. And it was just a lot of fun to compare.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Okay, Sam, let's hear about some favorite interactions with your host culture.
I think one of my favorite like community type experiences was when my good friend that I met during Welcome Week invited me and 3 other national exchange students to her house for Thanksgiving. And coming from Germany, we don't really do Thanksgiving as you do it in the US. And for me, that's just, I think, one of the most American holidays ever. And so experiencing that firsthand in her house, like an hour outside of Anchorage, and that was also a moment where I could see like a part of the rest of Alaska, because I was in Southeast, and that's very confined and far away from mainland Alaska. So I got to see that part a little more, and yeah, see her parents' gorgeous like log style house, and just eat all the pies that her mom made, and just experiencing that community holiday was really great. And we got to see the Alaska State Fair and just drove around a little more, because in Juneau, where I studied, one thing about Juneau is that it's very confined. You can only get there by boat or by plane. So there's not really the opportunity to drive around and see other places. So that was, yeah, it was really great to get out and experience Thanksgiving in America.
Oh, that's lovely. I hear whenever there's a chance to connect with local holidays or anything like that. From what everybody's saying, I mean, this is what I often find when chatting with students, is that it's always like a pleasant surprise how much like the local host culture like really wants you to feel like comfortable, wants you to feel included. And I just love hearing all these stories that are a testament to that. So Leo, let's go ahead and hear one of your favorite interactions with your host culture.
It's also about Thanksgiving, actually.
Great
That
holiday,
was
yeah.
yeah. It was with my friends from the volleyball club. It was the group was bigger than the volleyball club. It was the volleyball club plus some friends of them. So it was pretty big group, and they all created this Friendsgiving. So they invited me, of course, and we all cooked something. We all baked something for the dining meeting, and for the dinner. And I came with a big cake that I baked like the day before, and we all shared this moment together. There was such a really friendly moment, and we all shared our thoughts about the group and about the beginning of the year. There's a really great time, and I loved it, and I was feeling like part of a community like this. It was really great.
I love those. Those are great stories. We have some questions from our audience here. So I know each of you spoke a little bit about how you made the decision to apply to the different locations you applied to. But can you talk to us a little bit about what factored into your decision? Like what factors were you considering when you were creating your ISEP application and selecting the locations you wanted to go to? You want to start with Sam? Well, you spoke about academics, right?
Yeah, my major was a main factor. And then also I was just drawn to Alaska, like the landscape. That was just a place I always wanted to go. So that was just number one pretty easily for me. Yeah.
Great. Summer, what was one of the main factors for you?
For me, I really wanted to go somewhere where I could get outdoors pretty easily. Growing up in Wyoming, it's very rural, and I've always just kind of done stuff in the mountains, gone for hikes, gone climbing. And so I was a little hesitant about being in a city and not being able to kind of get out. So that's originally why I applied for more like Australia, New Zealand programs. But then how I chose University of Chester out of all of the places in the UK was that it was right next to Snowdonia National Park, and it is so easily accessible to just anywhere around the country.
Yeah.
And I also really liked that I was able to travel to Europe from the UK pretty easily. So that was, yeah, huge factor.
Wow, that's great. Leo, what about you? What factored into your decision?
First of all, it was the language. Of course, I wanted to learn English, so I wanted to go to an English-speaking country. One of them actually, and the US came up first because from my childhood I wanted to go there, and the state especially was hard to choose because there are so many states in the United States. So it's hard to choose. As I said before, I chose 10 universities in 10 different states. And actually, I didn't want to go to the East Coast. I don't know why, but I didn't want to go there. And I ended up going there because I've been offered this place at Goucher College. I didn't really think about it. I was like, just why not? So random and just destiny. There was a couldn't really try to go at one place, at one exact place. Sometimes it's cool to have some random choices on your way, on your path. It's cool too.
Yeah, that's great. And I know, Bridget, you spoke about how you were really interested in the city of Barcelona itself, but was there anything else that factored into your decision to choose Barcelona?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to see if it was possible to get credits for my major. I study neuroscience at Virginia Tech, and I knew that going to a Spanish-speaking country, that was a goal of mine because I wanted to continue studying Spanish, and I thought it would be probably pretty easy to get enrolled in a Spanish course or two while I was there. So it ended up working out great that the courses I took fit for my Spanish minor and my neuroscience major. I got two for each. But definitely a big factor was what I was going to be able to study. And I just kind of got lucky that the place I initially wanted to go to was going to work out. And I liked that Barcelona, being in Europe, is so kind of central and easy to travel around. So,
Yeah, perfect. All right, we have a lot of other good questions here in the chat. So the next one from our chat is about budgeting for study abroad. And can each of you speak to a little bit of what factors did you consider when setting your budget for your time abroad? And how did you how did you save for it? What did you plan for? Things like that. Can you talk to us about your how you approached the financial aspect of study abroad? I want to start with, yeah, Bridget, go for it. Yeah, jump in.
I honestly took advice from some of my friends who were doing a Virginia Tech study abroad program because their program really went through what people usually spend. They had gotten information from other people. So I kind of took those numbers into account because my program length was similar to theirs. And I definitely wanted to make sure that I had some sort of emergency fund set aside too, because you never know what could happen with transportation and things like that while you're abroad. So I was just very cautious, I guess, with when I was making purchases and stuff as well. I would write down every single purchase I made. And another big thing that I think would be good to look into is if your card has international fees or not. That was a big thing for me. So I made sure that mine didn't have international fees. And something I wish I had looked into before going was if there are high ATM withdrawal fees, because in some places that you travel to, you will have to withdraw cash more so than other places. So those are things to keep in mind, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's great advice. And if you're applying to an ISEP Direct program, like our program in Barcelona, we have budgets up now on our program page that can kind of help guide you in terms of figuring out what you might need to allot for finances for your semester, for your year abroad, or your summer. Does anybody else have a way that they planned financially for their time abroad?
I actually worked a lot before because I wanted to save up the more money I could. So for the last 2 years before leaving, I was working and saving up some money. I also took That was because I wanted to be cautious. So I took a small loan just to be sure that I have no any problem there.
Mm-hmm.
And especially you have to know of life in the country you're going. For example, in France, compared to the US, it's cheaper. So when I went to the US and I saw the prices of groceries or stuff like that, I was like, ah, okay, that's not like in France. So you have to be prepared for this. And I also have the luck to have a scholarship. So that helped me too. But yeah, I saved up money and I get to know the prices in general in the country you're going. Yeah, you have to know.
That's a good point. Definitely trying to look at, and we have some of that information in our country handbooks on the ISEP website, but looking at what's the typical cost of living in different countries that you're considering applying to. Because yes, especially for certain food items, the cost of food in the United States is much higher than the cost of food in different countries in Europe. I remember the first time I went to France, I was amazed at how inexpensive the food was. I was like, it's basically free. This is amazing. So I had the reverse reaction to you, but that's great. Our next question for the audience is, was there anything you hadn't prepared for before leaving that you found difficult, or anything you wish you had prepared for before leaving?
I can just go ahead and answer that
Jump
if you don't
in.
mind.
Yeah.
For me, actually, the most difficult thing was leaving because up until the moment, like a week before I was actually scheduled to leave, everything was just going smoothly. I was planning. I was just constantly busy with anticipating everything. And then a week before, one thing I actually hadn't anticipated was how like it hit me actually, like basically fear, like, am I doing the right thing? Oh my gosh, this is so scary, especially since I never left Europe before. This was the first time I would like leave Europe, and then it would be so far away. And I was really, I was just scared. And I didn't think that would be the case. And what I did was I actually recorded myself in that moment, and I still have that video, and I really still like to look at that video, because now that I've actually went ahead and pushed through that experience and knew now that I know what came out of it, and it was such a great time, that helped me so much to grow. Now that I look back at it, I'm like, look at how scared I was, and now I can't really understand it anymore. And it's a great, I think for me, it's just a great reminder that a lot of times when we're scared, there's actually something really, really important to learn here, like an opportunity to grow. And yeah, that's.
Oh, I love that. That's a great idea. I wish we all had thought of doing that before we had our first experiences abroad. That's great. I love that. Does anybody else have something they wish they had planned for or prepared for? Okay. So our next question, I can provide a little bit of background. So Christina's asking, was there a major difference between the ISEP Exchange and ISEP Direct programs that influenced your decision on which one to apply for? So just to provide a bit of background for everybody who's on the call who might not know, our ISEP Exchange programs, you always pay your home university, your tuition, meals, and housing to your home university, and that's what you'll receive at your host site abroad. With ISEP Exchange, you list up to 10 sites where you'd be willing to study on your application, and you'll be placed at one of those sites depending on the space available, depending on how many students choose to leave that university that semester, how popular it is, all of the above. And placement at one specific site is not guaranteed. It will be kind of chance which one you get. On ISEP Direct, it's a fee-paying program, so you pay your tuition to ISEP for a space at the program, and your space is guaranteed as long as you're academically eligible for that program. So, Bridget, you applied on ISEP Direct. Do you want to speak about your choice to apply on ISEP Direct?
Yeah, so since I had in mind where I wanted to study specifically, Direct made the most sense for me, and also with cost, there was a better opportunity cost to do Direct rather than Exchange. So My ISEP coordinator that works with Virginia Tech was really helpful in explaining the two because it was really confusing to me at first.
Yeah.
And I went ahead with direct, and I'm really thankful that I had been in contact with her throughout the entire application process because it worked out and it was a lot easier to have someone kind of guiding me through that decision-making process.
Yeah, I definitely would recommend either speaking to your home university or your ISEP student services officer. Everybody's situation is a little bit different, and sometimes it depends on what the cost of your home university is, what the cost of the specific program you're interested in through ISEP Direct is. Sometimes ISEP Direct is less expensive than ISEP Exchange, but everything kind of depends on your own individual situation. So I would really recommend speaking to your ISEP student services officer, and they can help you figure that out. But yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing. Sophia wanted to know from each of you, what was the course selection process like for you? How did you go about choosing the courses that you would take during your time abroad? Or researching maybe, did the site that you were interested in studying at have the courses that you wanted to take? How did you go about approaching that?
I guess I could talk. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
You could go if you
No,
want.
you go.
Okay. I guess this was one thing that brings me back to that question of like what I probably should have prepared for a little bit more. Because I remember applying by exchange. Obviously, I didn't know exactly where I was going very far in advance, but then by the time that I got accepted to the University of Chester, I also didn't know what classes would be available to me, which was a little bit of a kink in my plan when I first applied because later on I received an email that told me that I wasn't able to get into every class offered by the university, which is just something that I hadn't thought of before. There were only specific courses available to me as an ISEP exchange student. And so that is just something to keep in mind. I think, luckily, I found courses that translated over into my degree just fine, and I did get credit. So I do think there are options for everybody if you're choosing a program that at least does offer your major. But yeah, that was something that threw me off a little bit at first.
Well, that's a great point. We definitely recommend, like, as you're creating your ISEP application, we have in each program page the link to the courses available, and really reading through that. You can always get your ISEP student services officer to help you read through it to make sure that there is going to be enough classes and classes that are open to ISEP students that will meet your major's needs. We want to make sure everybody's getting credit and finds the courses that they need. Yeah. Does anybody else have any advice on how you went about like researching the courses that you could take?
I reached out to the UPF coordinator and
Mhm.
asked for some more resources of classes that were offered in the past that I would be able to look at because they were probably going to be very similar. So as soon as I got that list, I sent it to my advisors at Virginia Tech. I don't know how it is for other people's schools, but it can be pretty hard to find a true match between syllabi and get credit. So I did that as soon as I could and let my advisor kind of tell me what classes were going to match for Virginia Tech equivalents, which would then give me credit. So I think it's important to, as soon as you have that information, kind of coordinate with both ends of your study abroad program to make sure that you can get some credit out of it, because that's definitely a good thing and something you're going to want going into it.
A great point. You definitely want to take those courses and make sure that your home university, your academic advisor has reviewed them, make sure that they're good for credit at your home university. That's a great point. So a few other questions, a few that I'll answer out loud. So Maureen is wondering, is the university ranking we include in our ISEP application taken into account during the placement process? Yes, definitely. The ranking matters. You want to put your first choice first, your second choice second. That's the way the ISEP placement process works. The way it works, it's all done by an algorithm, and the algorithm seeks to place the greatest number of students as high as possible on their list. Usually above 75% of students will receive one of their top 3 choices. on ICEP Exchange. But you, as Jackie said in the beginning, you can list up to 10 choices for ICEP Exchange, and you want to have 1 to 2 that have a chance of placement of good or excellent. But yes, the order matters. List your first choice first, your second choice second, your third choice third. That's the way it'll work. First choice means it's where you want to go most. And then we have a question about ICEP Direct. Do you also pay fees to the local institution? No, so for ICEP Direct, you would just pay your fees to ICEP and we will pay the local tuition on your behalf. So you wouldn't pay double tuition, you would pay your fees to ICEP and we will pay the local institution for you. And then Patricia is wondering, did any of you extend your stay for traveling before or after the program? And was it easy to manage that in terms of housing, in terms of transportation? Did anybody stay before or after their program? Anybody jump in? Go ahead. Anyone can take it.
I did. I finished classes actually earlier than I had anticipated. I was done March 24th, I believe was the last day of school. And I had gotten there January 8th. So my parents had actually planned a trip already to visit me the first week of April, but some of my friends from the program or people that we had met that were in other programs abroad, they were also going to be there for a few more weeks. So we kind of planned it together, and the it wasn't university housing, it was just a residence hall building that ICEP placed me in, but I reached out to them and coordinated with them to stay longer because my room was available. So I honestly kept extending it and didn't really have a return flight for a while. And I was also lucky that one of my other good friends was studying abroad in a different country and she wanted to extend her stay as well. So we ended up doing a trip to Iceland on our way home to America. And that was just, I was very lucky and grateful that I was able to extend my stay and had that flexibility with, not having anything dragging me back home. But I definitely wanted to stay even longer, honestly. But I think I was there 3.5 weeks longer than my program. So almost
Wow,
another
that's
month.
great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did anybody else extend their stay?
So I guess I didn't really extend my stay, but that is something that I will add in was my program, also my classes as well did early or ended early. I'm sorry, I can't speak. But yeah, so they ended in late March, and my university housing through ICEP was, I think, until June 8th. So I ended up staying there without classes for another like month or so, and I would just recommend if you are thinking of extending it or going early, you definitely should, because that was a big regret of mine, and I will probably be doing that with my next study abroad.
Yeah, great. Sam or Leo, did you extend and try to travel around the US?
I didn't extend. Actually, I extended like 3 days or 4 days. I don't remember. When school ended, we stayed a little bit on campus, and then I went with some friends at their home, actually, up in New York, and we stayed 4 days, I think. So that was my little extent. But I know that many international students came before the beginning of the program with their family, most of them, and were visiting around the city. They were in Washington, Baltimore, and yeah, they stayed with their family at a hotel or Airbnbs, and so that can be a good choice if you're a bit stressed to go alone. That can be a first step. That, yeah, that's a possibility. And then obviously everyone wants to stay after their program because you just don't want to leave, but you have to leave one day. So yeah.
What about you, Sam? Did you stay later or come earlier?
Well, I was just gonna say, I wish I had, but unfortunately, my year was cut short by COVID. So actually, I was part of that crew that,
Mm,
like, my year got basically shortened for 2 months.
mm,
But I was also gonna say that I wish I had known that I could have come earlier because at the U University of Alaska, there's a lot of summer classes that would have been really cool because in other times of the year, they're just not possible. Like sea kayaking would have been a class I could have taken that year if I'd only known about it. And that I think it would have only been like I would have had to arrive like 2 weeks earlier. And I was a bit bummed that I missed that. But yeah, other than that, I had to
sounds
leave early, but
kayaking in winter in Alaska.
hmm?
Nobody's getting in the sea in the winter in Alaska, only in
Definitely
the
not.
summer.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, great. Well, thank you all so much. I'm going to turn it back to Jackie for our next question.
Yes, so
Sure.
I have one more question for each of you, which is just to think of one last piece of advice that you would share with students who are about to go abroad. So I'll let you think about that for just a moment, and I'll share one of mine. It's been a while, but I studied abroad in Costa Rica, and one of my recommendations is don't forget to travel around your host country as well. I had a really wonderful time getting to explore other countries in Latin America during my semester abroad. But oftentimes students kind of forget to explore the country that they're in. So see what other bucket list destinations are in the country where you're going to be studying, and don't just fixate on countries outside of where you're going to be studying. So who wants to jump in first with their piece of advice?
I was actually gonna say kind of the opposite, actually, because
Okay.
from my experience with exchange students in Europe, I see a lot of people actually fill every weekend with traveling to another country and seeing everything else, but and not really staying in the place that they originally came to. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that student exchange offers, that we can really basically become locals for the time that we're there and just have that mundane day-to-day life and see how that is in a totally different country. And that's something I really appreciate about that. It's definitely good also to see other places, but also take a breath in and don't feel like you have to see everything, especially when coming to Europe. It's practically impossible anyway. So yeah.
I think that's really great advice because yeah, there'll be opportunities to travel certainly in everybody's future, but yeah, really having that like authentic, immersive local experience is something that is so unique about studying abroad. So embracing that is a wonderful piece of advice. Who has their piece of advice ready? Leo looks ready.
I do too. I want to say just a piece of advice. Just don't be shy, and also don't stick at your comfort zone, because as the beginning of the year starts, you get comfortable with your new environment, you people that you
It's having a little bit of connection issues, Leo, but we definitely got the first part of that, which is to not be afraid to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, which really is
and
what
you
study
can
abroad is about.
stay in this comfort zone. It's cool, but you have so many too many people to discover. So unstable. Can you hear me well now?
Yes, we can. Thank you for sharing,
Okay.
Leo. We definitely got like the key points of that. So
Yeah, that was what.
yeah,
Yeah, that was my
yeah.
piece of advice.
Thank you. Okay, Summer, Bridget, who wants to go next?
I think
I
I'll
think
jump in. Oh, just kidding. You got it, Bridget.
Okay. I would say that it's really important to establish a routine and continue with whatever outlets you use usually in your life, whether that's exercising or playing an instrument or doing any of those things. I think that keeping some normalcy in your life when you're going into a new environment and you're going to be overwhelmed, there's going to be a time change, like all of those different factors can throw you off a little bit. But if you just keep up with one or two things, or even journaling, which I would encourage a lot because it's cool to look back on, your experiences and how you were feeling throughout the entire process of studying abroad. That's one thing I would recommend is keep some normalcy however you can.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Summer, we'll let you answer the last question.
I mean, journaling was what I was gonna go for actually.
Yeah.
You got it. Yeah, because I remember when I first went there, we had to take a required course as an exchange student about like intercultural experiential learning, and that was a requirement of the course that we had to start our own journal about our experience and then kind of report back on that at the end of the semester. And at first, I remember I was kind of like, oh, I'm just gonna do this for the class, like whatever. But I started journaling quite a bit, and I wish I had done it more, honestly. I did it like maybe every couple days, fell off of it for a bit, and then got back to it towards the end. And I've just recently started rereading them, and they're major. It's major because that was something I don't think I was very prepared for, was actually coming back home and having to leave like this place that I now loved and like had a family and a community, to come back home and but like feel like a different person in an environment that you had been in long before. So journaling was major for me.
All right. Great pieces of advice, everybody. And thank you for all of your answers today. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to the other Jackie to close us out.
Awesome. Okay, everyone. So speaking of those student services officers that can help you with your application, course list, all that good stuff. So we have myself and my colleague Cynthia, who are the student services officers for the United States. Any questions you have, you can ask us about the US. I'm also the student services officer for Canada, so any questions about the Canadian universities, let me have them. We also have Kira, who is the student services officer for Latin America and Spain. Honora is our student services officer for the United Kingdom, Ireland, and programs in Oceania. We have
Just to jump
Gretchen.
in, this is for students if you're interested in studying in these locations, not if you're
Yes.
from these locations.
Yes. Thanks, Rachel, for the nice reminder for everyone. Gretchen is the student services officer for programs in France, Northern Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. We have Grace, who is the student service officer for Central and Southern Europe. And finally, we have Rachel, who is the student services officer for programs in Asia. So of course, any questions or concerns you have about any of these programs in these regions, please reach out to us. We are happy to help. Our last little upcoming events and reminders for everyone. We have an application workshop. So this workshop is all about the ISEP application, certain tabs in there, any questions you may have, we go through them. This is going to be on Wednesday, September 6th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, US, and 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, US time. And then, of course, our spring 2024 application deadline is on September 15th. So please make sure if you want to start an application or if you've already started one, that you submit those by then. But any questions, please let us know. And we were so happy you were able to join us today.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining. If you're interested in the application workshop, I just put the registration link in the chat and you can join there. And have a great day. Thank you again to our amazing panelists for sharing your stories. It was so great to hear all about your experiences, and we really appreciate you sharing and being so generous with your time. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. And yes, don't forget to follow us on social media. We share lots of student stories directly onto our platforms. And we are huge advocates for stories directly from students being the best way to learn about what the ISEP student experience is like. And thank you to all our panelists today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.